Well, hello! My name is Vid, and today we're talking about the best fuel in Minecraft. As it turns out, it really depends if you're playing the game in Java Edition or Bedrock Edition, and whether you're playing an early game or late game. If you're playing on Bedrock Edition, you should be using Slabs. That's due to a weird bug that's in Minecraft right now that might be patched eventually, but right now, as of the time of releasing this video, use Slabs if you are on Bedrock. If you want the reason why, I will tell you in this video. If you're on Java Edition, well, you got some choices. If you're an early game, it's coal or charcoal, or maybe bamboo, or maybe you want to go so far as doing one of these crazy ones like dried kelp or even carpet using a carpet duper. But I'm going to tell you all about that and show you a design for a super smelter that I created on my own, and that has got to be worth a like. If you're looking to smelt the largest number of items with a single fuel source, you're going to want to go for lava buckets. Now, you are going to have to collect some iron, you're going to have to pre-smelt that iron, you're going to have to craft yourself a bucket, and then go find yourself a lava source. Pick that up. You will be able to smelt 100 items with a bucket of lava, and of course you will get the empty bucket back again. The problem is, if you don't have 100 items to smelt, you're really wasting your time. And if you have a lot of items, like for example, if you want to make a super smelter, lava is really not the way to go at all because it's hard to collect lava in bulk and at the speed required for a large super smelter. So I'm basically going to give lava a big X. And I'm just going to mark that with this red wool right here. The next most items you can smelt is 20 items if you have dried kelp blocks. Now, dried kelp blocks is a great early game fuel source or late game fuel source, but they are going to take a little bit of effort. So you've got to go into the water, you've got to collect kelp, which isn't too bad, but then you've got to bring your kelp back to a furnace, you've got to smelt that kelp into dried kelp, and then you've got to craft your kelp into kelp blocks. Every one of these kelp blocks is going to smelt 20 items, so again, if you have a lot of items to smelt, that's a good way to go. Now, you can't smelt kelp directly, which means in order to get started, you're going to need some other fuel source to at least smelt the first few pieces of kelp before you get your dried kelp back that you can then use to smelt other kelp into dried kelp. It's kind of a complicated solution, and to be honest with you, I think it's a little bit beyond the scope of this tutorial today, so I'm just going to say, don't use dried kelp. I will address this at some point in the future, just not today. Keeping with our theme of the most items you can smelt, the next item on our list is blaze rods. Every blaze rod you collect is going to give you 12 items. That's a lot, but you do have to go to the nether, you do have to collect blaze rods, and, well, early game anyway, this is going to be very difficult to do. Once you get to late game, maybe you want to set up a blaze farm and then you have a huge supply of blaze rods. Might be a good thing that you can use at that point, but I still am going to go out on a limb and say there is a better fuel source to use. So let's for now just say don't use blaze rods. Moving down the list, we have coal and charcoal, two fantastic items for early game smelting. Coal is really easy because you can go into a cave, you can harvest some coal, you don't even have to go into a cave, you can find this stuff basically in the side of a mountain or whatever. Collect as much coal as you can, and then you can use each piece of coal to smelt 8 items. That's huge, especially since if you have more than a stack of items, you can actually craft this stuff into a block of coal by using 9 coal, and that block will actually smelt 80 items. Here's the thing, if you use those same 9 coal and try to smelt items, you only get 72 items. You actually are making a better profit and a better use of your blocks of coal rather than using individual coal if you have a lot of items to smelt. Now, if you're only going to be smelting a small number of items, or if you have a super smelter that divides items, you might end up wasting a lot of coal. So for that reason, I am actually going to say don't use coal. The exact same logic can be applied to charcoal. Charcoal is a little bit easier to collect because you can just get wood, and wood is abundant in the overworld, but you do have the extra step where you have to smelt charcoal from logs, and so for this reason, don't use charcoal. Next on the list is logs themselves, and this is really interesting because each log, if you just use logs as a straight fuel source, it can smelt 1.5 items. Now, that's a little bit weird because if, for example, you were to take those logs and craft them into planks, you'll get 4 planks for every log. And planks also smelt 1.5 items. So for the same log, you get 4 planks, 1.5 items times 4 is 6. You'd be able to smelt 6 items with your planks that you obtain from the log, rather than just using the log itself, which would only give you 1.5 items, not even 2 full items. It's basically 1 for 1. You could also use your logs to convert them into charcoal. Now, the first 2 logs you collect, this is assuming you're only using logs. The first 2 logs you collect, you're going to use to make 1 charcoal. 1 as the fuel and 1 as the log that burns into the charcoal itself. Next, you're going to take that charcoal you've just made and you're going to combine it with 8 more logs. So you've used a total of 10 logs at this point to get 8 charcoal, and now you'll be able to smelt 64 items with your 10 logs that you've created. That's if you use them as logs and if you use them with charcoal and all that stuff. But again, going back to planks, just looking at planks, if we take those same 10 logs and then convert them into 40 planks, we don't have to go through the extra step of smelting. We can smelt 60 items. So it's slightly less than 64, but you're pretty darn close. So I would say don't use logs, just use planks. Now you might be interested in using slabs and thinking to yourself, well, what if I further divide my planks into slabs? On Java Edition, your slabs are going to burn for half as long as your planks are. So really, it's exactly the same math-wise, because you get 2 slabs for every plank and they burn half as long. So you end up with exactly the same number of items. However, on Bedrock, we do have that weird bug where slabs will actually burn for the same amount of time as a plank, giving you 1.5 items, which basically means you can effectively double the number of items you get just by cutting your your planks into slabs. 120 items. That's why this, if you're on Bedrock, is absolutely the golden ticket. I'm going to give this the big green check mark. Definitely, if you're on Bedrock, use slabs. I saw a video suggesting that ladders would be the better fuel source. Convert your logs into planks, your planks into sticks, and then your sticks into ladders. However, ladders will actually smelt 1.5 items, which is exactly the same as planks and slabs smelt. Here's the thing. How many ladders can you get out of logs? Do you get more planks or more ladders? Well, if you do the math, remember, 10 logs gives you 40 planks, which will allow you to smelt 60 items, but those same 10 logs are only going to give you about 34 ladders and allow you to smelt 51 items. So clearly, the planks are the winner here. So I'm going to put this as a maybe, a tentative yes, and this as a definite no. Don't use ladders. The next item to talk about is bamboo. Of course, bamboo is a great farmable item. However, it only smelts 0.25 items, meaning you need 4 bamboo to smelt 1 item. Well, if you have a large farm, that's not necessarily a problem. The real question becomes, should you use bamboo directly, or should you convert it into blocks or planks or slabs or ladders? What should you do? Well, if you take 126 bamboo, just as an example, you can use that 126 bamboo to smelt 31.5 items. Sounds good, right? But if you convert your bamboo into sticks, then you convert those sticks into ladders, again, the whole ladder thing, 27 ladders you'll get out of that 126 bamboo, which will allow you to smelt 40.5 items, or about 40 items. If you turn your bamboo, instead of turning it into sticks and then into ladders, if you turn it into blocks of bamboo, and then you take those blocks and convert them into planks, guess what? 28 planks. So more than the ladders, you are going to be able to smelt 42 items if you convert into planks. So bamboo, viable option. Yes, in fact, very, very good option. I'm going to give it a yellow for now, and the only reason is because I know secretly there's something better coming up. The last item on my list to talk about is wool and wool variants such as carpet. Now, wool by itself, you can create a wool farm from sheep, shearing, and all that other stuff. Each piece of wool will be able to smelt 0.5 items, which means you'll need 2 wool to smelt 1 item. If you take those 2 wool, on the other hand, and you create 3 carpets from the 2 wool, Each carpet will be able to smelt 1/3 of an item, which means you need 3 carpets to smelt 1 item. So 2 wool equals 1 item, 3 carpets equals 1 item. It's exactly the same. They both smelt 1 item, and there's no difference mathematically whether you use the wool directly or whether you convert it into carpets. So I would say that one of these is better than the other. If you have a big wool farm, use the wool directly. But if you want to be a little bit more technical and a little bit more savvy, this one right here is your golden ticket. I'm going to be so bold as to mark the wool with red, because wait until you see this trick. Start by placing down an observer. Now, that observer is going to be pointing into a block. On top of the block, you're going to place down a sticky piston facing this way. I'm just going to put a lever on the side of this guy right here. Now I'm going to pillar up on top of the observer with 2 slime blocks, 1, 2, and that is pretty much it. Well, we need some carpet as well. I'm just going to put some carpet right on top of this piston here, using the slime block to help. Watch this. You click the lever 1 time, nothing happens. But when you click the lever a 2nd time, ooh, what is happening? Yes, we are duplicating carpets. Check it out. All we had to do is build this little machine here, which requires 5 blocks, 6 if you count the lever. The hardest thing to obtain here is the slime, but a little bit of farming slime, and you've got yourself a magical little machine that will give you an unlimited amount of fuel with no huge farm required. It's so good. Of course, it's important to check with your server administrator if you are playing on a server to make sure that carpet duping is allowed. If it's not, you're going to have to rely on one of the other farms. But if it is allowed, man, oh man, this guy is going to help you out a lot. If you are interested in the industrial size version of this exact same thing, you can set this up. You are going to need a coral fan, and the carpets, of course, stack on top of that up to 4 layers high. When you turn this thing on, you're going to drop a ton of carpets right down here, and you can use this to feed into whatever smelts you like. I've used different colored carpets just for demonstration here, but if you are going to set this up for your smelter, I highly recommend using all the same color carpets. That way you don't have stacking issues with some of the different colors. Okay, so you're past the early part of the game where you have used your coal, or you've used your slabs, or you've used your carpet or your bamboo or whatever just to get you past the early game. And now you're moving into mid to late game and you want to set up a super smelter. What's the best fuel for that? Let's take a look. So this here is probably the most common super smelter you're going to see. I've got 16 furnaces set up here with hoppers underneath feeding into this chest here. I've got a minecart up top, which is going to feed fuel and evenly distribute it to all of these furnaces. And then I've got another hopper minecart in the back with another rail that's going into another set of hoppers on the bottom here feeding in, which is going to deliver the fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fuel in here. I'm going to use carpets, and I'm going to use my logs in here, which is the item that I want to smelt. I'm going to turn the fuel on, I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to let it go. And now you're going to watch the magic. Looks like everything's working fine, but when I take a closer look, you can actually see, the carpet actually runs out and doesn't even get a chance to necessarily smelt one item because it's just not flowing in fast enough. In fact, it's going to take a minute for the carpet to even refuel. So one solution is to use a slightly fancier setup for delivering fuel into your system. Here I've got a water stream that's passing by all those hoppers. I've got honey that's covering the hoppers, but it's going to allow my items as fuel to rest right up alongside of the honey and go into the hoppers underneath that you can't see. Instead of using a duper here, I'm just going to use a command block to start spamming this stuff in, but you can see that the fuel is actually going into all of the hoppers here. And if I had a carpet duper, I could just hook that up to here, so I would have all of my hoppers full of fuel. And then just like the other smelter, I'm going to put my logs or my item to smelt in this. I'm going to flip the switch, and you can see that I'm getting items evenly distributed again into all of these hoppers. A couple passes should fill up all of my hoppers because I've got 16 furnaces, so I can turn that off. And once these items are smelted, they're all going to end up down here. Now, there are a couple problems with this setup. The first issue is the complexity of this design. You're going to need something like honey or sea pickles or some other alignment option, plus you're going to need ice, you're going to need water streams. It makes a big mess, it makes a lot of noise, and it's just not pleasant. But more important than that, there is no real easy way to shut this system off. For example, if all of the hoppers are full, which they are right now, all of the items are just going to continue to cycle around in a loop here, trying to find a hopper that still needs items. But there's no real good, easy way to tell the system, you know what, I've got carpets, I've got enough fuel in the system, stop producing more. If this was a carpet duper, for example. So there is another solution that fixes this problem. And before I move on to that solution, I did want to show you one other problem as well with this design here. Every time the hopper minecart comes back, it's actually only under this hopper for a small amount of time. Eventually, if you're smelting a large number of items, for instance, you're only removing a small number of items at a time. So you can see it's only about 3 or 4 items it's taking out every time. This is 28. Let's see when it comes back one more time. Goes down to 22. It took 6 items. That's only enough to fill the first 6 furnaces. So eventually, after it smelts all of the items that are in the hopper minecart right here, it's going to very quickly run out of items and not have enough to fill all of these. So really, you need to have a solution here at this end, which basically makes the hopper minecart wait until it gets more items and then transition off. And I fixed all those problems in another design. And here is that design right here for the super smelter. Still got the 16 furnaces, only now we are feeding our fuel in the back here through a hopper chain. So check this out. I've just got a bunch of hoppers linked down to this one here. Now the way hopper priority works is it's going to try to go down into hoppers underneath these hoppers before it goes across. So what's going to happen is items entering the chain from this side are going to enter this hopper and then go straight down into this hopper and then into this furnace. They'll fill the furnace, then they'll fill this hopper, and then they'll fill this hopper, and when it overflows, it'll jump to this one. And then this one will fill, and then this one will fill, and then this one will fill, and then this one will fill. If you give it enough time, of course, you'll have carpets in all of your hoppers. And just to make sure I can keep my hopper full, I've got this system over here, which again is just going to continually drop even more carpets into this system right here. To solve the other problem where we had the hopper minecart coming across and then only going underneath the chest for a short amount of time, picking up about 6 items, now we've actually got this system where we can trap the minecart for a certain amount of time. So I'll demonstrate this in a minute, but what I'm just going to give you the theory first. The hopper minecart comes along, it goes underneath this gate and is able to pop up into and inside this chest. When it gets past this block here, the gate, even though it's above, actually holds it in place. It's kind of a strange mechanic. The chest minecart, or the hopper minecart itself, is actually inside this chest, which allows it to fill up. This is a detector rail right here, and even though it detects the hopper minecart when it arrives empty, it doesn't actually output a signal using a comparator unless there's any items in the hopper minecart. Once those items start flowing into the hopper minecart, a signal is going to come out of here, and then I've just got a bunch of repeaters slowing the signal down until it gets here where it's going to open the gate and let the system go. So let's demonstrate that in, by demonstrating it. Let's watch that. So we've got this locked in place. It's going to collect some items, and then when it gets a bunch of items, in this case it's collected about 60 items. I didn't need that many. I only needed 16 or 32 because I've got 16 furnaces. So 16 there and 16 back is 32. But I'm always going to end up net positive in my hopper minecart here. And now, as you can see, I have all of my furnaces working. They are using carpet again as the fuel source, and when they burn down, there's always enough carpet in the back because of all of these hoppers to refill all of the furnaces. The problem is, if I want to smelt a large amount of items, like for example, a double chest of items, you're going to see something happen after a while. Because so much carpet is being used, remember I need 3 pieces of carpet to smelt each item, the hoppers just can't keep up with that demand. And if I speed up the tick speed here, let's do this, tick rate 1000. Okay, so we're gonna go really fast here. Eventually you're gonna see, and it might take a while for this to actually happen. Eventually you're gonna see the carpet will actually run out in some of these early hoppers and they won't be able to fill fast enough. Ooh, that's loud. So the whole idea is you're going to need some system to make sure that you can fill your hoppers fast enough, or that you have enough hoppers or enough machines duplicating carpet to fill up all your hoppers fast enough. In Minecraft, in order to smelt one item, it takes 10 seconds. It doesn't matter if that item is kelp being smelted into dried kelp, or stone being smelted into smooth stone, or sand smelting into glass. Every item smelts in the same amount of time. That's 10 seconds to smelt one item. Now, we need to supply fuel for smelting those items. If we understand that a hopper will carry 2.5 items per second, then we can extend that 10 seconds and say in 10 seconds to smelt one item, we can transfer 25 fuel items using hoppers. So that means, and again, nerd math, if the number of fuel items required to smelt one item is X, you can fill 25 divided by X furnaces per module, depending on the fuel type. If you don't get that, don't worry about it. I've got signs over here which will simplify that for you. If you're using coal, for example, you can smelt one item with 8 coal. So each coal basically smelts 1/8 of an item. You could actually fill 200 furnaces if you just use hoppers. No problem at all. If you use lava, you can smelt 100 items. You could actually power 2,500 furnaces in a straight line using nothing but hoppers, and they would keep up if you just had a constant supply of lava buckets feeding in. Of course, you'd have to find some way of removing the empty buckets, and, well, that could be a whole other problem, so wouldn't recommend it. Blaze rods, you could do 300 furnaces. Planks and ladders, you could do 37 furnaces, so this might actually be a really good one to consider right here if you don't want to use carpet duping. If you're using straight bamboo, 6 furnaces, because you need 4 items, and yeah, you could only smelt using 6 furnaces. If you're using wool, it's 12 furnaces. If you're using carpet, it's 8 furnaces. And if you're using dried kelp block, it's 500 furnaces, which is, again, really, really nice if you want to set up a complicated farm using dried kelp. But since I'm using carpet, I can only power 8 furnaces and have the hoppers keep up. That's what this means, by the way, is the hoppers will keep up with 8 furnaces. So that's why I have set up this design over here. And again, I've got these command blocks just spitting carpets down into the system. Let's see, like that and like that. But these could easily be these carpet dupers, like the one I showed off earlier today. And what you're seeing here is that this command block is feeding into these set of hoppers here. So there's 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the next module is going to be another 8. And you could stack these as long as you wanted, and they're always going to feed all of the fuel in. So I've got a whole bunch of items over here ready to smelt. I'm going to turn on my super smelter. We're going to start smelting items as soon as we pick up the first set of items. Here we go. Boom. And we've got all our furnaces turned on. Now, what happens if I increase the tick speed again? Go up to 1,000, back and forth. Now let's take a look at the hoppers back here and see what's happening. Well, look, they're actually keeping up. They're only dropping down by 1 item each time, and that's because I have enough to overdrive these hoppers, make sure they always stay full. I'm never going to run out of fuel. I'm never going to have a deficiency. Even if I'm smelting 10,000 items, I'm never going to have any deficiency as long as I make sure I've used the math properly. And just to carry this idea to its natural conclusion, I have now hooked up both of my big industrial carpet dupers so that they're dropping items down here into hoppers. I've had to move them a little bit far away because they do tend to throw items out once in a while, and if you're not careful, they can end up in your hoppers where your smeltable items are going, and then they'll block up your smelter. But as long as they're a sufficient distance away, you shouldn't have any problems at all. Let's do this one more time where we fire off the minecart. And that's going to go, and then we'll increase the tick speed. And yeah, this is going to get a little bit laggy when I do this, but we'll do it anyway. Increase it to 10,000, or sorry, increase it to 1,000. We've increased it to 1,000, and now you can see, yeah, the hoppers are keeping up. There's no issue whatsoever. We're not going to have a problem with running out of fuel anytime soon because everything is keeping up. And once again, just for completeness, I just wanted to show you that you can actually add a very simple circuit to the end of these things. For example, I've got a comparator here checking the output of this hopper right here, so that when the hopper drops below a certain level, and I'm using this hopper just filled with full items except -1 in this slot here, and another comparator feeding into this, which is basically reducing the signal so that when this comparator turns off because it doesn't have enough items, that's when it turns this whole line off, which turns the whole machine on and starts duping. So basically, you don't end up with a whole bunch of entities clogging up the space. It's just on demand. While the system is running, it's using up carpets, and when it finds it is running low on carpets, it just turns the machine on for a few seconds just to get more carpets into the system. There goes that one, there goes the other one right there. And you can see they only run for like 1 or 2 seconds each, and then they stop, because that's all it takes to keep this system full of carpet. So there you go. I hope that gives you a good idea of what is the best fuel in Minecraft. Again, just to summarize, if you are on Bedrock, I highly recommend using slabs. Whether you're making bamboo or whether you're making just wood, log slabs, turn them into slabs, because due to that crazy bug that's in Bedrock right now, you are going to get about double the time and double the smelting power out of slabs. If you're not on Bedrock, if you're on Java, you're going to want to use either something like planks, or you're going to want to use bamboo turned into planks, or if you have a server or a single player world that supports duping, make yourself some carpet dupers. These are fantastic items. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you take the time to click that like button and maybe subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Vid, and I will see you in the next episode!